Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Navigating a relationship with a narcissist is akin to walking through a minefield. The emotional and psychological scars left by these interactions can run deep, leaving victims feeling powerless and desperate for justice. Hence, it's no surprise that many people want justice, or even revenge, for what they have suffered at the hands of the narcissist. But what does justice look like when dealing with a narcissist, and how can it be attained? However, before diving into strategies for securing justice, it's crucial to understand the nature of narcissistic behavior. Narcissists thrive on control and manipulation. Their self-worth is tied to their ability to dominate and shape the perceptions and actions of those around them. Empathy is foreign to them, and their actions are driven by a need to reinforce their own superiority and invulnerability. Therefore, this fundamental lack of empathy makes conventional approaches to justice and accountability ineffective. In today's video, we will explore the concept of securing justice against narcissists, focusing on self-empowerment, restoration, and reclaiming one's sense of self. Now, the concept of justice is often entwined with punishment in many people's minds, and understandably so. However, these are not actually the same thing. Justice is about righting a wrong and restoring balance, whereas punishment is about retribution for an offense or wrongdoing, essentially harming the offender. It's not wrong to desire either or both of these outcomes, but it's important to understand the difference when discussing justice in relationships with narcissists. Often, when we talk about wanting justice, we also mean that we want the narcissist to be punished for what they've done. Many victims of narcissistic abuse yearn for traditional justice, such as an apology or an acknowledgement for the harm caused, or some form of punishment that makes the narcissist feel the pain they've inflicted. However, expecting a narcissist to genuinely understand or acknowledge their wrongdoing is often futile. Their defense mechanisms, denial, projection, and gaslighting, are too deeply ingrained. Even if they face consequences, they are likely to interpret these as further proof of their victimhood, and not as a reflection of their actions. And for punishment to be truly impactful in the way people generally hope, it would require the narcissist to, 1, feel the way their victim felt, and understand that this is what's happening, and 2, understand that this is why the punishment is occurring. However, due to the nature of the narcissistic pathology, these things are unlikely to happen, even if the narcissist feels harmed by the punishment. They are unlikely to experience the same depth of feeling that you did. For example, their trust was not betrayed because, to begin with, they didn't trust you. They did not believe there was a bond with you, and then have that taken away from them, because they didn't bond with you. They didn't experience the confusion of feeling like they're suddenly dealing with a stranger, because they never truly knew you. They didn't have their hopes dashed because they never had any hopes to begin with, and they didn't suffer the pain and loss of things or people they believed in, because they believe in nothing. This is how their pathology functions, and has become deeply ingrained in them over decades of reinforcement. It's important to understand that this is not a matter of stubbornness or refusal to admit things. People severely affected by narcissistic pathology genuinely lack these capabilities. Even if narcissists feel hurt or harmed by punishment, their experience is not the same as for others. Due to their lack of empathy, narcissists cannot fully appreciate the impact of their actions on others, in the way that empathetic people can. While they may understand intellectually that their actions are wrong or hurtful, this intellectual awareness does not equate to having the empathy needed to truly grasp what this means. For those with empathy, these two types of understanding, intellectual knowledge and emotional awareness, usually go hand in hand and are not experienced independently of each other. But narcissists don't experience these aspects in the same way. It's just not there. You can punish them, harm them, or even imprison them, but you cannot make them face reality, take accountability, or understand that they are the cause of their situation. In this sense, punishing narcissists often falls completely flat. It has no real impact on them because their typical response is to deflect or deny responsibility. While they might feel the practical effects, like losing their freedom if imprisoned, they won't comprehend it in the way people want them to, and they likely never will. They will continue to blame others, live in a fantasy world, and see themselves as the only true victim. Understanding narcissistic pathology means realizing that the concept of justice is not truly attainable with narcissists. Certainly, you can take legitimate legal action against them for a crime they committed against you or someone else, and you should. However, don't expect them to have an epiphany or a breakdown from being forced to face reality. The belief that we can force narcissists to face reality is a misunderstanding of how narcissistic pathology works. These personalities live in a reality of their own making, and this is out of necessity because they cannot face actuality. Any realizations they have are fleeting, and are quickly replaced with distorted logic and fantasy. Anyone who has dealt with a narcissistic personality for any length of time knows this. While it may be tempting to believe that extreme situations or punishments can force them to face reality, all existing evidence suggests otherwise. Even in the face of the most extreme circumstances or consequences, the denial in the narcissistic personality remains intact. In some ways, wanting punishment to truly impact a narcissist is similar to trying to explain your feelings to them or appealing for them to stop hurting you. You want them to understand and feel that, which is understandable, but it's pointless. In both scenarios, victims are trying to reach the narcissist on a level that isn't possible, due to the inherent deficits and limitations of their personality. That is perhaps the biggest takeaway here. Trying to reach this person on any level is simply a waste of time. They didn't understand or care about your feelings when you tried to explain to them before, and they still don't understand or care now. It doesn't matter how you try to show them, love couldn't make them see it, and punishment won't make them see it, because they're just not capable of it. Therefore, this kind of punishment may end up feeling hollow or unsatisfactory. Justice in these situations is still attainable by understanding how narcissistic pathology functions, and recognizing that trying to make the narcissist see or care about your perspective will never work. Instead, you need to focus on what they care about, and that is, themselves. This means you should stop trying to force them to recognize or care about how they affected you, and instead address something in the dynamic that will genuinely impact them. For narcissistic personalities, power and control are paramount. Their entire existence revolves around exerting power and control over others. True justice for the victim, and effective punishment for the narcissist, are achieved by reclaiming what's been taken, and stopping the narcissist from using these things as weapons. Anyone who believes that this isn't sufficient punishment doesn't understand narcissistic pathology. Hating narcissists, seeking revenge, trying to hurt them, or attempting to ruin their lives, doesn't affect them in the way most people hope. This is because these forms of punishment do not challenge the core narratives and fantasies on which the narcissist's entire existence is based. Instead, they actually reinforce them. For instance, such punishment often validates and strengthens the narcissist's belief that they are the true victim. While attempting to punish narcissists might anger them, it generally doesn't hurt them in the way people expect. In fact, it provides them with narcissistic supply, as it not only reinforces their victim status, but also affirms their sense of importance. Since people spend so much time and energy focused on them, it also validates the narcissist's ego-centered paranoia about others plotting against them or trying to sabotage them. As a result, most punishments or revenge schemes do not have the impact people hope for, and can even backfire, playing right into the narcissist's hands. However, losing power and control over others is something narcissists cannot easily shake off or deflect. This loss directly undermines the core narratives and fantasies that form the foundation of their identity. Even if they find something else to blame the loss of control on, they still experience it more profoundly than most attempts to hurt or punish them. This loss strikes at the core of their fantasy narratives, destabilizing and even threatening them in a way that few other things can. Narcissists struggle to reweave their reality around these disruptions, which is why they devote so much time and energy in maintaining the power and control they believe they already possess. Losing power and control creates a significant and dangerous, existential threat for pathologically narcissistic individuals. It leads to destabilization and dysregulation, and can even cause a breakdown. Perhaps most troubling, it exposes them to their own true powerlessness. This is why they exhibit such paranoia and retaliation in response to even perceived threats to their power and control. They cannot tolerate losing these elements, as it feels like an existential crisis threatening their very existence. Without power and control, narcissists have nothing, no means to meet their needs, no way to interact with the world and others, and no way to survive. The loss of these elements is profoundly felt and instills genuine fear in narcissists in a way that other issues do not. They can often reinterpret most situations as a win for themselves, but this is one of the few true losses they are capable of experiencing. The impact of their inability to control others is intensely felt by narcissistic individuals. This is why narcissists often have such extreme reactions when their power and control over others is threatened, or even merely perceived to be threatened. It's important to recognize that, in this context, power and control aren't just about external authority over others. We're also talking about the loss of a sense of mastery over their environment, which affects their sense of security. This loss can evoke a desperate feeling of helplessness and vulnerability, similar to what a baby might feel if their cries for food and comfort were ignored. It originates from a deep-seated fear, even a terror, of being unable to control their environment and meet their needs. Just as babies depend on responsive caregiving to feel safe and secure, and to have some sense of mastery over their surroundings, because they cannot fulfill their own needs, narcissists rely on their ability to coerce, manipulate, and dominate, to achieve that same sense of mastery. When a narcissist's sense of power and control over others is threatened or removed, it represents a regression to a state of utter helplessness, a regression that the narcissist experiences as an existential crisis. It's not just about losing the ability to assert their will over others, but about losing the very foundation upon which their entire means of survival is built. This is what drives their extreme and disproportionate reactions to threats against their power. They panic, and this panic fuels rage and a sort of terrorized, infantile entitlement. They react with indignation at being exposed to their own weakness and vulnerability. They are enraged by being confronted with their own powerlessness, when you refuse to be manipulated or coerced, and no longer serve as the selfless, responsive caregiver they demand. How dare you deprive them of their ability to get their needs met? Nothing provokes a reaction in narcissists quite like a threat to their power and control. This is how true justice can ultimately be achieved in these situations. Restoring balance involves making the narcissist keep and deal with what belongs to them, while reclaiming what is rightfully yours. This approach not only benefits you, but also affects the narcissist in a way that nothing else can. You cannot make narcissists see the objective reality of their actions, or force them to accept or internalize the consequences. However, you can compel them to confront something far worse, the realization that they truly have no power or control over anything. Their fragile fantasy relies entirely on your agreement to play along with it, and nothing, absolutely nothing, affects them more than being forced to face the reality that their fantasy is not true. The threat of a genuine erasure of everything they believe themselves to be, including their actual selves, is what impacts them the most. If they don't control others and have no power over their own environment, do they even truly exist? Without a reflection to see themselves in, are they really there? While we may not fully grasp this level of existential dread, we can relate to other aspects of this dynamic. For example, think about a time when you desperately wanted something you couldn't have, or when something really important was taken away from you. Remember the helplessness, anger, frustration, and the fear you felt. All of this was intensified by the fact that you couldn't do anything about it. Now amplify that terrible emotional state many times over, and you're still not even close to how profoundly this affects narcissists. Anyone who disputes this simply doesn't understand how this pathology functions, and how crucial power and control are for pathologically narcissistic personalities to maintain even a superficial sense of mastery over their environment. Taking power and control back from narcissists forces them to truly see and acknowledge you, in a way that nothing else can. Even if they were the ones who ended the relationship, even if they don't seem to care, and despite any other circumstances, this is still the reality. They still won't see you for who you truly are, and they still won't recognize that they are the cause of the situation. However, that's not the point. The key is that if you want to make a significant impact on a narcissist, this is the way to do it. Trying to make them acknowledge and care about your pain won't work, because they lack empathy, and it's ultimately irrelevant. How you try to make them acknowledge and care about your own pain is missing from their capability. You can only impact narcissists by making them recognize and care about their own pain. It might be a coincidence, or maybe not, that what affects them the most is also the best thing for your own well-being. Understanding this doesn't mean your desire for punishment will simply disappear. It's a deeply human instinct, dating back to the dawn of time, to want those who have harmed us to experience consequences, and to be held accountable. The key is to remember that you're dealing with an unusual situation, involving an atypical person. Therefore, the practical application of justice or punishment in this case is not conventional, and may look different from what you might desire or expect. This doesn't make it any less impactful. In fact, it might be even more impactful than the consequences most people face. However, it can be challenging to reconcile this understanding with the primal urges of your ego. Your anger is completely justified, your desire for justice is fair, and you certainly deserve to see it. Just remember that, regardless of what may or may not happen, true justice is about reclaiming yourself and your power from anyone who tries to take it from you. True justice means leaving behind the narcissist, who will have to scramble through life, battling imaginary foes, and existing only in the reflections of others' imagined opinions. Meanwhile, you live a genuine life in the real world, surrounded by real people, and discover your true self. True justice is about finding and liberating the real you. The most profound form of justice you can achieve against a narcissist is to live your life authentically and free from their influence. By reclaiming your autonomy and rebuilding your self-esteem, you deny them the power they crave. You shift the narrative from being a victim of their manipulation to a survivor and thriver in your own right. Narcissists derive their sense of importance from the control they exert over others. By taking back control of your life, you strip them of their perceived power. This doesn't mean they will recognize their faults or change their ways, but it does mean that you are no longer a pawn in their game. Securing justice against narcissists is a deeply personal and empowering journey. It's about more than seeking retribution, it's about reclaiming your life and your sense of self. By setting boundaries, detaching emotionally, seeking legal recourse when necessary, focusing on your healing, and living authentically, you achieve a form of justice that resonates far deeper than any conventional punishment ever could. Remember, the best way to secure justice against a narcissist is to ensure they no longer have control over your life. True justice against narcissists is not about making them see the error of their ways or making them suffer. It's about reclaiming the power and control they have stolen. Empower yourself, restore your self-worth, and embrace the freedom that comes with breaking free from their toxic influence. In doing so, you find true justice and the path to a fulfilling, authentic life. So, I hope this helps you. If this content was helpful, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to my channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. Always feel free to share your experiences in the comment section below. I express my gratitude to everyone for tuning in and watching. Let us help spread the awareness and lead healthier and fulfilling lives.